The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
And welcome back to the week of No Ifs, Ands, or Buts. We call it that because Matt Butts, that's B-U-T-T-S, is the star of the show. mbutslaw.net, mbutslaw.net, 948-4958, 948-4958, divorce and family law. He's the best. I actually work with Matt, so I can say definitively that if I get someone on Tony Kurre Radio, I use their services. And people are like, do you ever use their services? And I'm like, absolutely. I don't have anyone on my shows unless I use them. Of course, you can find this podcast anywhere you get your favorite podcast. We're available everywhere. He's got a very special guest on, and I like this when you bring guests on. Tyler Gray, who's a criminal defense attorney, former Jefferson County sheriff for 11 years, now works with J.B. Brown Criminal Trial Practices, has military experience as well. Thank you so much for your service in the armed forces and the Army. We greatly appreciate you. And good morning to both you gentlemen. Nice to have you both on.
It's good to see you, Tony.
So it's good to see you too. So I'm going to start with Tyler because I don't get to see him every week. And I've heard all your answers already, Matthew. So I'm going to pepper Tyler with some questions. So you are a former Jefferson County sheriff. What would make you want to become an attorney? What did you see in your former line of business to say, wow, this would be something I could actually execute in this next line?
So that's a great question. I think a lot of police officers or law enforcement people that get into the legal profession typically end up at the district attorney's office. So it is a unique thing that I'm doing criminal defense. I think that at least in my time when I was in the law enforcement, there's two legal definitions of people that are in the law enforcement community. There's law enforcement officers. They're also referred to as peace officers. Mm-hmm. And for me, I really felt that I aligned more and identified more with the peace officer aspect of that, in the sense that, everybody doesn't need to go to jail, right, all the time. And there's a lot of times that there's equitable solutions that can maintain the peace. So in a very real respect, I don't think that I'm doing anything differently now than I was then, just in a little bit different capacity, just like there's different departments in law enforcement. Everybody's not on patrol, for example. And I feel that I'm doing essentially the same thing. I know that I've seen firsthand that, very good police officers, very good district attorneys can inadvertently and unintentionally steamroll people in the criminal justice system if they have no experience with it. That's not intentional, and it certainly doesn't mean that anybody's bad. It just happens. And so I think that it's very important to have criminal defense attorneys that can kind of push back on that, and that we can more accurately get to a lot of times the truth of things that are going on, and having somebody to speak for you that knows the system, I think facilitates that for clients really well, and also allows me to have some respect and rapport with district attorneys and things like that, because they know that I understand the system and I also believe in justice and things like that. I think that a lot of times for clients that get, sometimes good people can get caught up in very bad situations, and sometimes what they legitimately need are resources, and not just jail time. And so having someone that can understand the system and that also, like I said, has been on the other side of it, going, hey, listen, I'm all about locking really bad people up, right? That's been a lot of my life. But in this particular instance, we need parenting classes. We need substance abuse classes. We need, that's really what's going to go the furthest here to prevent this, not only, in the future, and allow this person to be a more productive and active citizen. So like I said, for me, I feel like I'm doing a lot of the same thing, just in a little bit different way. It doesn't feel that much different.
Well, if a criminal defense attorney doesn't work, I can put you in politics next. That was pretty. that was pretty good there. They kind of go right together. It's rare. I'm 60 years old. I've gotten in some trouble before. My daughter threw that question, Dad, have you ever been arrested? And I'm like, yeah. We don't need to get into, how long were you in and why were you in and blah, blah, blah. And, the wrong place, wrong time. Talk a little bit about how that plays out, not only in your former job as a Jefferson County sheriff. It just doesn't happen very often where you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I know that it happens, and I'm sure it happens in criminal defense cases as well. But can you talk a little bit about that, about how often that happens, or does it happen ever?
No, it certainly does happen, and in the ways that it happens, I think that there's a huge difference in somebody going, the equivalent of "those aren't my pants," versus, sometimes you can be in a vehicle with people that you have no idea what they're doing or what's in the vehicle. I mean, I don't ever stop and open the trunk and look under the seats and search an entire car
Yeah.
before I go ride with somebody.
Mhm.
Now, how often that happens, I have no idea. I've seen it, like I said, as both a law enforcement officer and now as an attorney. I think that the moral takeaway is you need to be careful who you hang out with. That's certainly
Mhm.
true. But there again, I think it's important to understand that law enforcement officers aren't the court. They're not the district attorney. They can only operate on with the information that they have. And if you find, for example, drugs in a vehicle and everyone in the vehicle is pointing fingers at each other, the only real solution is to take everybody to jail.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that the police aren't doing their job or they're doing something poorly. They don't have any other option. But again, that's where it takes ethical and moral prosecutors to try to work through that, and ethical and moral defense attorneys to also work through that as well, so that we're not just kind of, I mean, this is not the best example, but throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's easier to just let's just get a plea deal for everybody and everybody can go to diversion and everybody can do this, but that's not that's not fair in the sense for people that, hey, I legitimately didn't know,
Yeah.
and it's also allowing the person that put all of those people in that situation to kind of almost get off with it as well. So it's just,
No Ifs, Ands, or Buts is the name of the show. It's a fantastic show. It's one of our most listened to shows. You're getting free advice, man. 948-4958, mbutslaw.net, mbutslaw.net. Divorce and family law is what Matthew does. Tyler Gray, the criminal defense attorney, is joining us here, the former Jefferson County Sheriff for 11 years, now works for J.B. Brown Criminal Trial Practice. So give me an example, Matt, where you would work with Tyler. Perhaps you're going through some type of would have to be some type of sloppy, I'm imagining, divorce. And why would you pick up that phone and call your buddy?
First off, I would like to state that I have had a "those aren't my pants" case. That's happened.
Or my dress.
I've had that conversation before.
Mm.
So look, you know that I'm working primarily in the avenue of divorce, and sometimes in divorce, or lots of times, really, it will correlate with criminal law. So many times when I'm handling the divorce, sometimes if it's a misdemeanor, it's something that I think that I can handle pretty well. I'm going to handle both. But if it's something that's going to need, hey, we need absolute focus here. We can't really combine these cases. We need to separate out the attorneys. That's when I would call Tyler and I would say, all right.
Can
Or
you
if
can you
it's
give me
a
an
capital
example?
murder, I'm
Yeah,
not taking
yeah.
those. I
Can,
don't. Go ahead.
yeah, can you give me an example? Just an example of
Okay, so say that you've got a divorce going on. One party has picked up a DUI as well as a domestic violence, as well
gotcha.
as violation of a protection order.
Mhm.
Those are three serious, serious criminal charges. All right. I am working within the avenue of the divorce. If you got one charge, I may be able to handle that. But for it to be handled well, I need to get it to a professional who's going to handle those criminal charges. And that's going to be Tyler.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I imagine you guys probably work with each other quite a bit. And again, with a criminal defense thing, I'm not saying that a divorce would be something that would come out of something like that, but it certainly probably could. I would imagine there's probably some cases that probably do that as well. So yeah. Um,
Right.
so Tyler, and you were talking about some of the things that you were doing as a sheriff that you can now use in this line of work. I don't know how long you've actually been doing this, but give me an example of something that you took from being a Jefferson County sheriff that you can directly utilize as an attorney in this new practice you're in.
The easiest and quickest thing I guess to say is the way that interviews are conducted by the police, and the things that they are doing in order to get the information that they're trying to get out of people. It's a deeply psychological thing.
Mhm.
It can seem very random. It seems very almost innocuous even at times, but there is procedure that's going on. There is a protocol that's being followed, and even very seasoned defense attorneys, if you've never been in that environment, there's ways to legally attack things, of course. But to understand kind of, hey, here's there a lot of times based on an interview or based on a conversation, I guess, with police, I feel like I would understand a lot more their attitude towards the case as far as whether they believe this, whether they're what direction they're typically going to go with it based on questions that they're asking and things like that. I think that's one of the biggest advantages that I can bring to that is that kind of insider's perspective.
The one thing I've taught my three kids, and I'm not asking for a pat on the back, but I've always I don't like police officers. I mean, I've got friends of mine that are police officers, but for the most part, I try to stay away from my GM and I try to stay away from police officers. If I'm not staying
Sure.
away from those two people, I'm usually not in trouble, right? But I do make my kids every time they see someone in uniform, whether it's military or a firefighter or first responder, I make my kids, and now I don't have to do it anymore, but go up there and tell them thank you for your service. I don't think they realize just how difficult that is. Um, can you talk? How old are you, Tyler?
I'm 40.
Okay, wow, you look awesome for 40. Because I was going to
Thank
say
you.
mid 20s, 27. Wow, that's amazing.
How old do you think I am, Tony?
No, I'm not even going to go there. You look like something the cat drug in. What are you talking about, Matt? No, so so this will you be able to answer this question a little better? Where have we gone just over the last decade or two? As far as in the respect and the loyalty we have towards our police force and our police officers and what they do on a regular basis. I got a house right next door to me, and she's got a sign that says, "We support Hoover Police." Well, I do too. I don't feel the need to put a sign up. Nick
Hmm.
Dirks has been a friend of mine forever. You know, he's the mayor of Hoover. But can you talk a little bit about where we kind of lost our obedience? Is it coming from parents? Is it these small factional groups that like the poor boys, or what is it? Why have we lost the respect for our men in blue? What's the problem?
So obviously, there's no way that I could speak for society at large. I
Sure,
can tell you how my experience has been over a little over a decade in law enforcement, how it started versus why or how I ended up ultimately getting out of it. For right or wrong, I think I don't think that that's for the purposes of this discussion doesn't really matter. But the end result has been that in both the courts, in the public opinion, and in the administration within law enforcement, there's not at all the trust, and I guess in an officer's word or in what they're doing. Now, that may be completely warranted. I'm not saying that that's not the case. It may not be, but that's where we are. So whether it's we're dealing with it used to be, I mean, 15, 20 years ago, if you had an officer on stand and they said something or it was in their report, I mean, that might as well have been, gospel, so to speak. And
sure.
that may not have been the best thing either. But now, if it doesn't matter what an officer says a lot of times, unless it's perfectly captured on body cam with the perfect audio and the perfect angle, they're not believed. And I think that that's been an overcorrection as well. I don't know. I wish that somehow we could have a conversation where we could agree that we need to work together as law
Hmm.
enforcement in the community. I
Yeah,
don't know it's just what that looks like, but from my experience, body cameras, for example, are prevalent now in almost every jurisdiction, which is a good thing.
mhm.
And that is a good thing on the part of the public. Where it's a bad thing, in my opinion, is now you have an administration in law enforcement that are able to armchair quarterback decisions that are made in real time. And so it creates a situation where officers feel that, listen, no matter what I do, I'm going to be wrong. They're going to tell me the 14 ways that I could have done this better
Yeah.
instead of the 1.4 seconds that I had to make this decision. And I think that we've got to figure out a way to handle that, because it's doing one of two things. Either officers are not wanting to use body camera as much as they likely should because of that, because it may affect their job even when they're not doing anything wrong. And then also that that they're getting disciplined, right? An administration that goes, like I said, well, here's all these list of things that you could have done, and it creates um, uh, like a reluctance, I guess, is what I would say on the part of law enforcement to even act a lot of the time.
Yeah, my special needs son used to have a pet chicken. His name
Hmm.
was Dover. He was a black chicken, and he was a beautiful chicken. And my son would want to hold that chicken every day when he got off the school bus. And so it was my job to go catch that chicken. So I'd have it in my hands when he come off the bus, and he wanted to hold that chicken. And I can tell you something that when you're chasing chickens, it pisses you off. And so I can only imagine being a police officer. I tell my kids, yeah, I'd go for the stick. If someone's running away from me and I can't catch them and they're they're doing everything they can to get away from me, and I finally put my hands on them, I would, I'd want to lay that chicken out. So I always tell my kids, if you want to make things easier, just do what they're asking you to do. I know there's good and bad, but for the most part, 99% of the time, just do what they're asking you to do, and it's going to be okay. It's going to work
Well,
its way out.
I'm gonna bring up. I agree with your point. I'm gonna probably frame that in a way that you've never considered, and hopefully people listening may consider. You're absolutely right in that generates frustration. However, the only thing that I would disagree with is that does not result in, let's say, an overcorrection on the part of the officer in the sense of
Yeah.
like, too much force. I know that's not what you're implying, but
Well,
what
yeah.
does happen is, again, because of the political environment that we're in, if you are in a situation where you can make an arrest, where you can issue a citation,
Mhm.
and someone starts to act that way, they start trying to be obnoxiously recording you, just like all this stuff. What that person is doing is essentially removing the discretion of that officer to go, hey, I'm just going to let you go with a warning. Because what happens when that complaint comes in and you have to go stand before whomever, and they go, well, why did this complaint come in and you did everything right? And they go, well, it must have not been too bad because you didn't write them a ticket.
Yeah.
It must have not been too bad because they didn't go to
Mm.
jail.
That's
So
that's right.
it's they're making that situation worse, not, like I said, in just the physical sense, but
Mhm.
just the fact that, like, any discretion, any I don't want to say mercy, but like any understanding that you're removing that from the officer, because now they have to do everything that they can do in order to protect themselves when that person makes a complaint, or if that person makes a complaint. I think
Yeah.
that, to your point, is the biggest thing, because we've kind of created this now where that's that vicious circle, right?
Yeah.
Where, people are getting maybe hammered harder than they would have, but it's because of their actions, which creates more of these
Hmm.
adverse actions, which, it just kind of, that
Sure.
that's the biggest thing that I've seen in law, that most people in the public wouldn't understand. That what you described is people intuitively get that, but that's only the beginning of the story, I
Yeah. I
guess.
don't I don't miss I don't miss those chickens. No ifs, ands, or buts. He has Matt Butts, does wonderful work, and of course, love using his services. And of course, you can too. 948-4958, 948-4958, mbutslaw.net, mbutslaw.net. He does divorce and family law. So, Matt, we were talking about how perhaps you would use Tyler's services. When you have a judge overlooking, so if you're talking about a domestic violence case and it's obviously part of a divorce, who deciphers what part goes first? Do you have an attorney for? So you'd have an attorney for both, and typically in a court of law, when you're talking about a divorce, you're talking about another third party coming in saying, "Listen, I want this to move along. I couldn't help the fact that he was doing this other crap, but I want my part to be over first." How does that work? How does that work in a court of law?
Well, so obviously, for me at least, if you've got two avenues, you need two attorneys. Not everybody can afford that, so I try to accommodate that for people. But ideally, you're going to have a criminal defense attorney and a domestic relations attorney. Now, if there's a criminal case, most of the time I'm going to file a motion to stay the divorce case pending the outcome of the criminal case. I don't always do that, and the stay is not automatic in the state of Alabama. However, there are Fifth Amendment considerations about, in a criminal case, it's harder to get evidence. In a divorce case, we're asking for your Facebook messages. So
Yeah.
if you did that divorce case first and all that evidence comes in, or even worse, gets admitted into court as evidence that could be used later in a criminal case, you just did their discovery for them in their divorce case.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never considered that. That's
It's an
interesting.
evidence thing, man. It's a big, big, big deal. So I like to keep those lanes separate in as much as I can.
Yeah.
Um,
And particularly when one thing certainly creates another, that would be
mhm.
something that would be. And let me ask you this, and you guys respectively do wonderful jobs, but it does take time to go to get a court case because the logs are so long. The last time I went, there was like 17 cases in front of mine. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, I don't even know what I was doing there because there's no way they were going to possibly get to me. But they did. They got to me for sure shooting. How important is it, regardless of whether it's a criminal case or divorce case, and you have done something that perhaps is not right in the eyes of the law or your spouse, to be proactive and to start cleaning up your side of the street as soon as possible before you actually get into court? Because normally you do have 4 or 5 months before you're actually going to get in front of somebody.
I mean, obviously, I want my clients to take the next right step, especially when they leave this office. And then right after that, they're going to do the exact same thing until they come back. So I want them moving in the right direction, not just for the case, but because I care about them as people, right? I don't
Sure.
want to leave them out there drowning. I want to say, hey, do this, this, this. Let's get back on track. Let's get your life back. Um, but you know, most of the time the damage is done.
Yeah.
If there's been a case filed, but it looks really, really good if you said, okay, I'm owning this. I'm going to do everything in my power to make amends and to do right. And I'm not saying it's going to affect your criminal outcome. He's a better judge of that, but I'm telling you, I think it could not hurt at all. I will tell you, in city court where I work a lot of the time in criminal
Mhm.
defense, it really affects it.
Yeah.
There are situations where let's say it's a criminal charge that's just very loosely related to a family matter, so it's
Mhm.
not really kind of coming up, but it's kind of out there in the ether, so to speak. That if you're doing things for one or both, substance abuse classes, parenting classes, anger management classes, and you're doing those for one of your matters, right? That it can positively affect the other one as well, because you can, just like you said, you come in and you go, hey, here's what we've done. Right.
Yeah.
Here's what's been done so far before anyone ever, looks at it. And I mean, there have been times with me where I've had a client that's completed some sort of a course, not just because of a family matter, but they've completed a substance abuse course or a parenting course, whatever it is. And then the first time that we're able to sit down with the prosecutor and we go, hey, here's what we've already done. And they're like, well, that's what I was going to ask for anyway
There you
before,
go. Yeah.
so that helps.
But the rule that I keep hearing come up is do not do things that you're supposed to be doing already.
Right.
Like, don't volunteer at your church, man.
Right.
Well, look what I joined the choir. Well, my gosh, that's great. What over and above did you do? Because you're supposed to be doing that anyway, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
So do something over and above, or maybe more in line with what your lawyer's telling you that the prosecutor's going to expect.
Yeah. And if you were doing those things in the first place, you probably wouldn't be in that situation. You
Right.
probably wouldn't be there. Hey guys, great stuff, man. Tyler, you're welcome to join us any single time, man. Of course,
Thank you.
this is Matt's show, mbutslaw.net, mbutslaw.net, 948-4958, 948-4958. And of course, you can also find Tyler Gray, criminal defense attorney with JB Brown Criminal Trial Practice. Do you want to give out your phone number? If you want to give out
Sure.
your email address, so
I'll give out
find
my
you.
phone number.
Go ahead.
An email address, I guess.
Yeah.
Phone number is area code 205-265-1694.
Okay.
And then my email address is tyler.gray@thepeoplesdefender.com.
There you go.
Gray with an A or Gray with an E?
Gray with an A. Thank you for asking.
There you go. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. We always take email questions. We always get questions. Info at TonyCurryRadio.net. Can't wait to read the questions for this next week. We'll get into those sometime next week. And man, great having you on the show. Congratulations on your new gig, if you were, and you're sitting next to one of the best there. So happy to have you on anytime.
Yeah.
Man. Appreciate you. Thank you guys. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.